me today, I have the National Director of Development with International Justice Mission, also known as IJM Canada. I've got, of course, David Pollandine. David, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. You guys have a very interesting event coming up. I would love to hear the details.
Oh, I'm so excited. So on June the 12th, which is it's on a Wednesday, so next Wednesday, Philippine Independence Day, we have a virtual trip to the Philippines. So most people would never be able to go. They haven't got the time, the money. So this is one of these things that have come out of COVID, really. So we have an hour-long trip from 8 p.m. Central Time to 9 p.m. And there's an opportunity there to meet the staff, our investigators, our aftercare workers, our lawyers, and just to hear about the work that they are doing, incredible work to tackle online sexual exploitation of children. Our big kind of guest that we're very excited about is Zoe, who is a survivor, leader of OSEC, and she will be sharing her story. And it will be almost to the day 6 years when she was rescued. She was rescued June the 13th, 2018. So really, you're going to see the years that the Lord, the years that locusts ate, that the Lord has restored. It's just very exciting that she's going to be there speaking. So yeah, be lovely. It's free. And just go on to igm.ca and you can just scroll down a bit and there's a big registration sort of badge there.
Okay, so people should register beforehand?
Register beforehand and then you'll get sent the link. Just I think on the day you'll get sent a link for the event, yeah.
Nice, so people can do this from the comfort of their own home, but they can get great information.
Absolutely, and it's it's a great way to learn about this topic, and we'll talk about it, which is incredibly important because it's one of those things that doesn't get talked about. And if we don't talk about it and lift the carpet off it, it's something that could be devastating for children across the world, but children here in Canada as well.
Absolutely. I am passionate about this, and I think it's good to arm yourself with knowledge because that's when you can do something about it.
Yeah, yeah.
I would also love to know, what are two things that are surprising in the recent Scale of Harm report?
Okay, so Scale of Harm report is a big thing for IGM Canada. So we started working, we saw OSEC, online sex exploitation, we saw it really come into prevalence in 2016. And so we really shifted our work from sort of street sex trafficking, so really trying to get minors out of that industry, which is very much a sort of a street, brothels, bars, kind of an urban situation. And it shifted to being something in someone's home on the internet. So it was a private, personal thing. It could be anywhere across 7,000 islands in the Philippines, very hard to detect. So the first thing we do whenever we go into a country is we want to measure the problem. So we do prevalent studies to do that. If you can't measure it, you can't prove it. If you can't prove it, then you don't know how effective your efforts are. So the Scale of Harm was a project we did with the Nottingham University Rights Lab in the UK, and many other stakeholders and organisations supported and sponsored what we were doing. And we were able, for the first time, actually do a prevalence study of OSEC. So that's the live streamed abuse of children, which is happening usually by a third-party facilitator in the Philippines. Often it's the parent, often mum. And the customer is going to be sitting behind a computer who's a predator in Canada, in the US, and the UK, often Western countries, and they're literally paying in real time for the abuse they want to see. So OSEC is something that we are desperately keen to measure because it's just so important. So we managed to do that, and in 2022, it was quite devastating, the results. The first thing was that there are about 500,000 Filipino children who have been trafficked into OSEC, either through live streaming or through their image being used. That is 1 in every 100 Filipino child, which is incredibly high. What I think brought it home for us in Canada was another report that came out of this as well by the Philippine Anti-Money Laundering Council. And they measured that since 2015, Canada has consistently ranked 4th in money that's remitted internationally for OSEC. And actually, if you look at us per capita, we rank just behind the US. We rank 2nd in the world. So it was quite devastating, really. And it's like, we need to do something about this. It shook Parliament as well. And so there's a wonderful group, an all-party parliamentary group at Parliament who are against human trafficking and slavery. So we've teamed up with them. And we actually had a big sort of open briefing recently at Ottawa. And we're calling on the government to actually do something about it, to collaborate with civil society, with NGOs, to strengthen laws to protect children online, and to make sure perpetrators get the proper sentencing as well for it. So it's very serious. It's something that used to be maybe seen as niche, and it's like, okay, it's now become a global problem. And Canada as a demand side country, are one of the, to our shame, the leading countries and actually in this crime. So yeah, we need to sort it out.
Absolutely. I would love for you not to talk about the 5 recommendations that strengthen the Canadian response, but maybe just a few.
Yeah. I think one is this, coming back to strengthening the law to protect children. We would love to follow the suit of what they've done in Australia and the UK, because they've done this. They have legislated, they've passed laws so that online platforms, need to be safe by design to protect children. It's really a no-brainer. We are not allowed to build a car without a safety belt. It's illegal. Mm-hmm. And so it should be the same online. It should be illegal. There should be guardrails on there when we build these platforms to protect children from this kind of abuse. So that's one thing we're asking for. Another thing, we've got a wonderful center in the Philippines called PCAC, and it's the Philippine Internet Against Crimes Against Children Center. And it's a group. It's full of international investigators from all over the world, because this is a global crime. And the only way we can trace the abuse in the Philippines is by finding the computer of the person in the demand side country, and then getting access to the IP address so that we can trace where it's coming from. So we have an RCMP officer from Canada in Manila, working in our PCAC center, and he's doing a great job, and he's liaising with the RCMP and liaising with the Philippine National Police. But we could do with more personnel there, more support. Australia are a smaller country. They have 4 personnel. So it'd be great if we could increase the personnel, just so that international element of investigating the crime would just be stronger for us. So yeah, that's 2 of the 5. But if you want to send those to your local MP, just go on to igm.ca/scale of harm, and you can just you see a report, you can get a summary, you can get the 5 recommendations, and just email it or send a letter to your local MP saying, look, why aren't we doing these?
Yeah, absolutely. Are some of these going to be talked about on that night?
Yes, they will. And we do have a Q&A. So that's the time when you can literally ask any questions. So there'll be our staff there answering questions, but any question that gets asked is answered, even if it gets answered like a few days later. So yeah, do come along and ask lots of questions. Yeah.
Pretty big question to end this, but even if you can wrap it up in a little nutshell, how can concerned Canadians, which are many of our listeners, help in this situation?
Yeah, I think what have we got in our hands? What can we do? I think one thing that we do need to know more about is we need to learn about the issue. And I think the problem is often we think of the internet and we think of computer technology. We think of geeks. We think of people that are kind of wired that way. But we all need to be wired that way, because the internet is something that is accessed by grandparents and by toddlers. Everybody's on there. And it's a free-for-all at the moment. There's just very little protection. If there's any images that come up, they can't be removed, and anyone can access these things. So we need to just learn a lot more about it, especially if we're parents or if we're grandparents. So I would say a great first step would be to come to the virtual trip. I mean, it's very simple. Sign up, and there you can actually speak to people who are doing this work, who are experts, who are global experts in this work, because the Philippines, unfortunately, is the epicenter of this problem. And so they really have the experience and the know-how of what's going on, because they've been dealing with it. So I'd say that's a big first step, definitely, to come along. But you know what? The work that we do in the Philippines, we are completely reliant on those professionals doing the work. So we need to find ways to support them. So another way is just to support the work that we do, and you can become a Freedom Partner with IGM, and that just means you can actually go on to our, again, igm.ca /free, and you can donate money to support the work of our investigators who are doing work, like I explained, with PCAC, who are doing things with aftercare work, working with survivors who really need support for years and years after the exploitation that they've suffered. So, so they're just two ways that people could respond. Yeah,
I appreciate that, David, so much. That, yes, let's shine a light on it so that shame has nowhere to grow anymore and learn more, and so that we can do more.
Yeah, absolutely.
All in the name of Jesus.
Amen.
Is there anything else you want to share this morning?
I don't know. Can I just quickly share Zoe's story?
Yes.
There may not be time for you can.
Yes.
Yeah, there may be, but I'd love to share her story because she will be speaking, and so the other thing with our recommendations is that they're all, everything that we do is we have consultant survivors. Survivors are consultants through everything we do because they are the experts. They know about this more than anybody. They have a perspective like nobody else. So getting their kind of eye shot, their perspective is incredibly important. So just to say, I just wanted to share Zoe's story. So Zoe basically was 8 years old when she was tricked by her sisters to join online conversations with foreign men. She was sexually abused by her 4 elder sisters, and the men on the other side of the screen, obviously in countries like Canada and the US, paid to watch and direct the abuse. Her abuse lasted for 4 years, and that's quite typical. And it wouldn't be actually until Zoe was 17 when she was rescued by IGM and the partners in the Philippines. One of the men in contact with her sisters was a Swedish man, and the Swedish authorities arrested this man because they were able to, again, trace the digital forensic evidence. And from this arrest, basically they revealed that he was talking to multiple abusers in the Philippines, 2 of whom were Zoe's abusers. So there's that international connection that's really important to be able to trace the guy from the Sweden and trace him back to the Philippines. So on June the 13th, as I said, 2018, Zoe was rescued and brought to the aftercare shelter, and she began receiving help and then finding the unconditional love from her family and friends. And Zoe has now been restored. You're never completely restored, but to a point now where she's functioning and she is really starting to flourish. She's an active member of the Philippine Survivor Network, and she is driven to become a fully licensed psychologist so that she can help other victims and survivors of online exploitation. So just one wonderful story. The years that the locusts have eaten, God will restore them. And we've seen that again and again. When you can walk with survivors through the justice system, you can properly give them trauma-informed care, they come out the other side and they flourish. So she would be a beautiful example of that.
Thank you for sharing her story. This is really powerful stuff. We'll let everybody know exactly how they can help and check out this incredible event coming up.
It'd be great. And I'll be there. So love to see you there as well.
Thank you so much, David, for taking the time.
Thank you.